How's everybody doing? Good, good. So this may be a little bit of a different topic than the normal operations topic that you have, but how many people have had a wrench put in their project and someone hold it for hostage? Has anybody been affected by ransomware? I know somebody that's been affected by ransomware. Yeah. And does anybody have any short stories or anything they'd like to share about what they've heard? Okay, no worries. I've got plenty of stories. I've got enough to scare you, so we're good. So first we're going to talk about the threat. We're going to talk about what's out there, because we all work hard in IT every day. And to have someone come in and smash and grab or hold our precious work for ransom is not fun. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the theory versus the reality, what we're trying to do to conventionally protect ourselves against ransomware, but what is the reality of this? What's really happening in the industry? And then the hope. What are we doing now recently as an industry to be able to combat this? So let's talk about some stats first. These are some stats I got last year from Azure. And these are pretty staggering alone. Most of the cloud providers have these outrageous stats, but these are the particular ones that I've gotten. And just to look to see that there's multi-millions of attacks that happen per day in an Azure type of environment, that's pretty scary. And the brute force attacks, over 1,000 per second. So we're talking about something that gets bombarded all the time. All the VMs, your infrastructure that you have in the cloud or even in the data center, this is the volume of attacks that are happening. And as you notice, for Azure, ransomware is number 4 on the list. And in some other environments, it's actually higher on the list. There's a friend of mine that I present with every once in a while, and last summer he had to do a webinar, and he thought, well, I'm going to do it on Azure Security. He set up a couple of VMs that he was actually going to use to demonstrate something else, to demonstrate how to use security in Azure. And what he found right after he did that webinar was that the IP addresses for those 2 VMs happened to show up in the webinar. Within 20 minutes of that webinar being over, attacks started happening. And he noticed days went by, it was still being attacked. And he thought at first, maybe I ought to shut this down. You know, this is really getting a lot of attention. But then he thought, well, you know, this is looking kind of interesting. I could actually use this as a demo. Because in Azure, you can get a world map, and it can show you where your VMs are getting attacked from. So he decided to keep them alive and use them to kind of draw things in. Does anybody know what that's called? That's right, honeypot. So he decided to use that as a honeypot for all his presentations. And it's amazing to see real time all of these VMs getting attacked. It was pretty impressive. The good news is that overall ransomware attacks are going down. As of the report from Symantec that just came out for 2019, this was about last year actually, even though they call it the 2019 report. That's a good thing. The bad thing is that a lot of these attackers are moving from attacking folks personally to attacking enterprises. They find they can get more money, they can ask for higher ransom, and so that's going up. Another thing that's going up is mobile, ransomware for mobile. That has gone up 33% in the last year. That's a lot. So getting your phones broken into, that your lives are on your phones. So having to pay ransomware, having to pay a ransomware attack for your phone, that can cost you. That can cost you dearly. And just looking at the new attacks that are happening in the cloud. Think about all those great new applications that you're using, new infrastructure you're using, that neat little Kubernetes environment that you have with the Docker infrastructure, and you think everything's all cool and everything looks wonderful, and all of a sudden it gets attacked and a hand gets put out for money for all the work that you've done. Other areas that have really poor security are these new open databases, these new NoSQL databases. So MongoDB, your Cassandra, all these new databases that you're using, they're vulnerable. And Symantec actually measured over 70 million records last year either getting stolen or leaked. That's a lot. I mean, think about the amount of records that are just sitting in your data center that are just waiting to get attacked. And there are numerous new tools that are getting built every day to work on the cloud, because it is not the cloud provider's responsibility to protect you. It's still your responsibility. It's in your contract that you still protect your own data. Now, do the service providers offer best practices? Do they offer different types of software solutions, things that you can use from the marketplace in order to protect your data? Yeah, take advantage of those, because this is still your responsibility. A lot of folks don't realize that. Just like it's your responsibility in the data center, it's your responsibility as you use cloud providers also. And does anybody know the #1 reason why these attackers are so successful? Anybody? There you go, misconfigurations. #1, makes it so easy. So a lot of the things that were talked about in last hour in making sure that that your infrastructure is doing what it's supposed to do and being able to detect anomalies is extremely important, because a lot of applications get affected by this. What is the #1 area that cyber criminals like to attack? Anybody take a guess? See the picture? Thank you. Healthcare. Healthcare is #1. 71% of breaches are successful. And does anybody know why they're so successful?
You can't upgrade. You're locked into FDA-approved hardware.
Yes, yeah. So they're using older infrastructure and older architecture. They're kind of forced into it. And so what happens is that they aren't able to use the latest techniques in security perimeters and other things in order to be able to protect not only the hospital and its cash flow, but to also protect you. You have to realize that over 50% of these attacks actually happen from inside the hospital. It's not even from the outside of the hospital. And one of the biggest reasons is the misuse of privileges. People just kind of pass around passwords, easily use them for anything, and don't make those passwords actually hard to break into. And so what that does, that leaves a back door for ransomware. There was a hospital in LA that actually got attacked and had to shut down for a week. They lost so much revenue because they ended up having to turn ambulances away from taking any patients, because not only is the IT infrastructure attacked, but also all the medical devices. So anything that does your scans, anything that's life-saving, life support, everything goes through that IT infrastructure. So all of that is getting shut down, messed up. A lot of data is being deleted or encrypted. It's very, very scary, because we're not just talking about money here, we're talking about lives. So ransomware can be pretty scary, almost makes you not want to go to a hospital. What is the second target? Can anybody guess?
Transportation.
Thank you. Transportation and infrastructure.
I didn't know in advance.
Yeah, we're not good friends for, you know. 2/3 of their attacks happen externally. A good example is San Francisco, their transportation system. They had to shut down for one day and give free rides to everybody, which hit their revenues pretty hard. And when their revenues are hit pretty hard, guess what? That comes out of your tax dollars. So not only is San Francisco, the city of San Francisco, losing money, but that means that everybody living in the San Francisco area is losing money as well because it's taken out of your taxes, all of this damage. And anytime someone tried to purchase something out of a kiosk, it says, you've been hacked. They didn't know if these guys were stealing credit card information and holding that for ransom, but to get that straightened out and fixed cost them millions. It's really, really a big deal. Espionage is #1 for transportation, and we depend on that on a daily basis. Just imagine most of us that fly, you know, if they hacked into the airline systems. We've already seen recently havoc that has happened in the airline system. Okay, #3. Thank you. Education, schools, yes. Yes is #3. And a good example of this is a school district outside of Houston that got attacked. And teachers couldn't teach for 3 days. They couldn't do lesson plans, grades, nothing. And now that students are online as well, for their homework couldn't get done. Basically, we lost taxpayer dollars. Anyone living in that school district paying school taxes, and anybody that lives in Texas knows that school taxes are high. You pay thousands of dollars a year just for school taxes. Well, your school taxes are going up. This is causing a huge problem for all of us. We're all paying for ransomware. It's not just a group of people. Universities are getting attacked, public and private. And look what's happening with tuition. It's a factor of what's happening to our tuition today. So now when our children get out of college, guess what? They've got a mortgage without a house. And this is part of it. And you can't ignore this. You know, when you get this message here, it really freaks a lot of people out. And if it's happening to you personally, you're pretty frozen. You don't know what files they've taken. You don't know if your budget spreadsheet with all your credit card numbers and information has been held ransom. You don't know what they're going to do with it. You don't know if you're going to get it back. Small business, they have shut down small business because they couldn't afford to pay the ransom, and they did not know how to get the data back. Totally paralyzes businesses. This is horrible. And for enterprises, you really can't ignore this. It escalates. It gets bigger. And they don't ask for cash anymore because that's traceable. You know, they're asking for other types of currency. Bitcoin was used for a while until Bitcoin took a big dive, bit the dust kind of thing. But they're asking for other types of cryptocurrency. They're asking for other ways of payment. And this is hard to ignore. Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the damage that is happening here. 2015, where we really started to see evidence of it, that people were really noticing that ransomware was happening. Okay, so, you know, we've got maybe $1/3 billion in 2015 as far as damage costs. You know, this is hard cost, a little bit of soft cost. You can't quite measure all the soft costs, so you know it's got to be more. But by 2017, it's over $5 billion. And this is just the stuff we know about. This is just the stuff we can measure. This isn't about all the ones that weren't reported that we didn't know about. This is huge business, and it's causing a lot of damage in the industry, a lot of time lost, a lot of productivity lost. And we look at the money ransomed. You know, in 2016, okay, you know, $250,000 industry-wide, sure. We can live with that. That's something we could sweep under the rug. But when you get to the next year and you're looking at over $6 million, you are looking at something that is over 2,500% of an increase. This went crazy. When I presented this before in the fall, I had somebody ask me, they're like, well, why isn't the FBI doing something about this? Why isn't the police doing something about this? Well, just imagine their budgets can't handle this. This is a fast-moving industry, and I call it an industry now, because now it is making billions of dollars. It is causing billions of dollars in damage. It is making a lot of money. This is like, the storage industry, we've got the networking industry, the computing industry, and now we have the ransomware industry. I mean, there's over 45,000 sites out there where you can just go and purchase yourself some ransomware. You can start your own business. They're for sale listings. You can get them off of Craigslist. Ransomware-as-a-Service. Oh my God, can you believe that? And to top it all off, they've got a whole supply chain going in the dark web. It's insane. They've got software developers. I mean, they're little companies with software developers. They've got training and best practices on distribution, how to do spray and pray, how to target your attack target. They have ways of you encrypting with that software, and then also offer decrypting kits so that when someone does pay, you can give them the decrypting kit and they can get their files back. But that doesn't always happen. They don't always give you that kit. You can give them the money, but there's a 50-50 chance that you will get your data back. And payment, as I mentioned earlier, Bitcoin was huge, and now they're using other types. They've moved on. It's a fast-moving industry. And I think the thing that really got me the most when I did research around this is the support system. They have customer service. They have 800 numbers. They've got call centers. They've got help desks. This is insane. This is a business run just like any company we work for. So the theory right now, we do education around our security perimeter. What does our security perimeter look like? Work with our security companies and software companies to make sure that we have the best perimeter possible. We make sure we've got insurance just in case. We talk to our data protection providers, our data management providers, make sure that we've got a good way to back up and archive just in case something happens. These are the normal things that we follow. But the reality is, it's not a matter of if this is going to happen to you. It's a matter of when this is going to happen to you. And when it does, we're talking about data loss, downtime, loss of productivity, and money. This can cost in the millions. Last year, we saw on the news, we saw some of the biggest hits happen, and it took months for those folks to recover. They spent millions of dollars recovering instead of paying the ransom. So this is big business. Don't think about getting into it, because people will get caught. So don't get any ideas. I know you're like, oh, she's selling this. Maybe I should talk to her later, Yeah. So looking at this, everybody's got a great security perimeter. Not knocking the security perimeters at all. They're doing a great job. They're even implementing types of intelligence to be able to increase being able to block out the noise. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And last year there was a study done, and 71% of the companies that were interviewed said that they had successfully been attacked by ransomware. They had to deal with this. And a friend of mine, last summer, he did his own study. He did another set of companies, and he found that it was more like 3/4 of the people that he interviewed actually said that they were successfully attacked. So this is coming. This is happening. So what can we do about this? Let's first look at the process. Let's look at what happens. So you've got this attack that's coming. It gets in. with some kind of virus or infection. It comes to, innocent punishing email or a backdoor. There's various ways that they can get in with this infection. So now your infrastructure is getting infected. It scans files, it encrypts files, it moves very, very fast. And then when they think that they've got what they need, they hold their hand out for some money. That's when you get those pictures that I showed you earlier about, hey, you've been hacked and this is how you can get your files back and you can pay a big amount of money. But you have to think about this. Do I want to pay the money or do I want to go to the process of trying to recover this on my own? And so when you go through the process, first you have to find out that you have been attacked. So you have to detect it. And that can take up to a week to say, hey, wait a minute, I can't get to my files anymore. And to do the analysis, to find out what's been encrypted, what hasn't been encrypted, overall what's been infected, it takes a while. And then it's time to recover. You got to figure out how you're going to recover. Are you going to recover files, directories, volumes? How are you going to get the system back with a minimal amount of data loss? Well, let's look at this, because we're going to look at the time it takes to do it traditionally and then what's happening in the past year or so with intelligence. So detection, as I mentioned, it could take up to a week. And then you've got to comb through thousands of files. That could take weeks or months to find out the damage. And then you've got to decide how you're going to recover. So I have seen on an average people spending weeks to months trying to get back on track. There was a company that I spent a little time with, and they have a great security perimeter. They are integration company, and they got attacked. And they ended up, it took them about 5 days to find out what's going on. Yes, we have been attacked. It took them weeks to go through the analysis. And then when they finally figured out the extent of the damage, they did a volume recover of a snapshot that they did 30 days ago. So that means any data, any new data that they generated in the past 30 days is gone. There's your data loss right there. They can't get that back. And so that can be devastating, especially if you have sensitive files. If we look at the modern way of what new companies are doing, what new data protection companies are doing, data management companies are doing, companies like Splunk are doing, and using intelligence, it'd be nice to be able to cut that down to minutes or hours instead of weeks and months. So when you use this new technology, you'll find that they'll use machine learning to be able to do early detection. They can tell within minutes or hours, depending on how you have set up your data protection, they can tell you right away that you have been attacked, that one has gotten through, you've been breached. Then that can spiral into automation. Wouldn't it be nice if you didn't have to go through thousands of files to be able to figure out what's been encrypted and not encrypted? Wouldn't it be nice within minutes to just get a report that says, hey, this is what's going on. Would you like for me to recover these? And you just click a button, and within minutes or hours, depending on the volume of the damage, you're up and running. So this can happen within minutes or hours, depending on the size of the damage, and you're up and running. Minimal downtime, most cases no data loss, and productivity. You don't have a whole bunch of people scrambling around, freaked out, trying to figure out what to do next. Your productivity, you just go back to work. Not a problem. And the nice thing about machine learning is that there's a variety of them that you can use for anomaly detection. And these are the two most popular that I've seen that companies are using now. One, the KNN is really nice. It's a very simple classification algorithm, and it basically does early detection without needing to do a lot of learning. Most machine learning algorithms, they need to take a data set of, 3 to 6 months to understand your behavior in order to be able to be effective. The nice thing about this algorithm is that you don't need that. And it can start within a week. There's usually some kind of baseline model that's common to most data centers. And then what it does is it starts learning your behavior right away, and it can start detecting right away. Others choose to use what's called random forest. And the reason why it's called forest is it creates, in parallel, it creates a bunch of B trees and then merges those trees together for something that's a little more accurate and can be used for other types of use cases. Because these anomalies are not always malicious. Sometimes, you get that new employee that accidentally just deletes half the data for the company. I know somebody who did that. Not me, but I know somebody who did that on his first day of work. And it detected it. And right away, they were able to bring all those files back, be able to recover. So these are nice algorithms. You can look them up online and read a little bit more about them. But the anomaly detection of these is like a fingerprint for your company. So they're very unique. No one can actually figure out your pattern and break in because it's learning and changing every second. I mean, it's real time how it's changing. So that's really nice. And so as a result of these coming on the market, we've got good news. Ransomware is going down. Last year, as more people implemented, even though we saw that enterprises, the attacks were going up, as far as the overall being able to penetrate has gone down. And so now attackers are looking at other easy ways to attack, like I talked about with the cloud. So make sure that you're protecting your whole hybrid cloud environment. That's very important. And just to show a little more information, we can look at it by market. We can even look at new families. We see that in 2016, where we saw the height of the amount of damage, and we saw the height of the amount of money being ransomed, we noticed they started slowing down in 2017, 2018. So being able to implement new technology and using machine learning, using automation, using AI for this is very important in protecting your company. And so for some best practices, visibility is going to be your number one thing. Being able to do that early detection, know what's going on. And machine learning has been highly successful in showing you that visibility and automating that analysis process. What would be nice is to be able to see machine learning on like network security before it even reaches your data. Because if we can detect it at a network level, that's going to help us a lot in deterring what happens on the back end with our storage. Following corporate policies and reviewing those corporate policies on a regular basis, changing those corporate policies along with how the industry is changing in software and how to protect and use more intelligence, because the volume is so large, it's beyond what humans can do. We need intelligence to be able to do this.
How do you trust your machine learning? A lot of people, they look at the machine doing the analytics and stuff and go, well, I don't know if that's for real or not. I don't understand the algorithm. How do you trust it?
Now, that's a very, very good question, because that is a question that I've gotten from customers before. And what I found is, you set it up, but you don't know it works until you get infected, right? Well, you'd like to know beforehand. You can go on GitHub, and there are ransomware, what do they call those? Ransomware simulation kits. And so you can set up the simulation kit and see if the software actually detects. So if you can do that, and also some companies have done benchmarks, and so they have benchmark data, and they make that available. They also make the kits available as well, so you can see for yourself that it's actually working in your environment. But yeah, that's a very good question.
Do you have any metrics on which one of the machine learning is more effective, KNN versus random forest?
I find that because the fact that random forest can do classification and regression, I find that folks are moving more towards that because it gives them a more extensive look at what's going on and allows them to use it for other use cases as well and expand to other types of areas.
The preamble part is, once upon a time, QA was somebody else's problem, right? And now it's integrated the rest of the world. I kind of feel like even in operations, still security, it's like, oh yeah, we care, but it's kind of always somebody else's problem, right? Especially when it comes ransomware, it sort of has end user behavior. I mean, there's, obvious there's the database attacks like you talked about, but a lot of it seems very desktop phishing kind of oriented as well. So it's like, that's interesting, but we're like core operations, and that's somebody else's kind of problem. Do you have any advice or for either kind of overcoming that, or do you have any kind of examples of companies that you see kind of people working together across this organizational divide to address this new vector of attack?
Yeah, so companies last year that got attacked and were in the news about that, that's one thing that they're learning. I have not found an IT organization that has actually made those changes for awareness and for folks to really understand that they're in jeopardy as well. But I know that a lot of companies last year that got attacked that were in the news, they're reevaluating, they're relooking, they're now talking to modern data protection companies and actually rethinking how they do that and how they organizationally change so that it's everybody's responsibility. Because those attacks can happen within. When I was presenting last fall, there was someone that had a story about an attack within. They had a disgruntled employee, was not very happy, and he basically gave a back door to someone on the outside that did this type of ransomware business and just totally wreaked havoc. So I notice people don't do anything about it until it actually happens to them in a big spectacular way. Kind of like, what we do with our homes. We personally don't really put up security parameters until, we get robbed or someone in our neighborhood gets robbed, and all of a sudden sales for security goes up in our neighborhood. I find a lot of companies do that. They don't want to spend the money on prevention until it happens.
All right, so we know, I'm going to walk over there to get you. So we know that snapshots on storage systems are clearly backup. Like, are those effective in helping with recovering from ransomware, or is that a fool's errand?
Yeah, no, it's part of your protection. It's part of your defense layer. The thing is that you can have immutable backups all day long, but if you don't have early detection, what's going to happen is that period of time of new data between the time you've been attacked and the time you figure it out and shut everything down, any new data that's generated is gone. You've got that data loss. So you're going to be bringing dated data back. You're not going to have what you worked on yesterday or the day before.
Last week's business or last month's business versus your recent business.
Yeah, I mean, you could have wrote some wonderful code 2 days ago and it's gone. Yeah.
Hi, first of all, thank you. Great presentation. Brought a lot of things to mind just outside of my awareness. So in our business, we deal a lot with compliance issues. Have you seen any initiatives or changes to things like ISO 27001 for introducing measures against security threats like this?
So I do see that there is some work that's being done. There hasn't been anything solid yet, but I know it's in discussions. I know there's work being done in that area. But the folks that have actually taken real action around this as far as compliance is concerned is, the GDPR over in Europe. So
Right,
the
even,
European
so I deal
Union.
with PII and GDPR as well, and GDPR still, in my opinion, has not taken strong enough steps.
Yeah,
That's
they're
it.
supposed to be raising their fines this year. They've got some new guidelines for this year. And so there's supposed to be some much higher fines this year. But yeah, they have been lacking for a long time. And then China is way behind because they have their own. But they're watching the GDPR to see what they do. But all I've seen them do is mainly make the fines a lot higher for not being in compliance. But I haven't seen like real teeth.
Sure, right, to me, that's like closing the barn door after the horse is out, too.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
All right, well, with that, thank you very much, Leah. We appreciate it.